Welcome to History 111, Lecture 22, The Nullification Crisis. The road to the nullification crisis begins in a lot of ways as a tariff of abomination. And again, that's a tariff that was intended to help New England textile industries who were suffering from British dumping. Now, to get the tariff through, a lot of other duties had to be added, and this really angers the South. And another major factor in the nullification crisis is a man named John Calhoun. Calhoun is one of only two people to be vice presidents under different presidents. He served under both Adams and Jackson. That's because the vice presidential election was not tied to the president, as is the case now. Now, Calhoun is someone who subscribes to the corrupt bargain theory and bitterly opposed Adams at every turn, and that wins him the favor of Jacksonians, and that's one of the reasons that he remains in office after the election. Now, Calhoun has a problem, though, as relations with Jackson and his supporters deteriorate over time. And that is that he is from South Carolina and had been a supporter of protectionism. But protectionist tariffs were making it very hard for South Carolina to compete with newer, more productive states. Now, Calhoun knows that he is not going to continue to keep the support of Jackson and his followers, and he's looking to go back into political office, into the Senate, for example, and he wants a seat in South Carolina. And he has to win back South Carolina's favor because a lot of the things he supported has harmed his home state. So Calhoun starts talking about this theory of nullification that he comes up with. And he draws the Kentucky and Virginia resolves. He draws on the 10th Amendment. And he comes up with this theory that says this: the federal government is the creation of the states. The states, rather than the courts, were the final arbiters of constitutionality, and therefore they could nullify a law. What, in other words, he said was, it was for the state to decide what was constitutional and not constitutional, not for the Supreme Court. It was for each individual state. Why? The states had created the Constitution, and therefore they could undo the Constitution. At least that's how Calhoun saw it. Now, the nullification crisis itself emerges in 1832 when a new tariff comes through that's not going to help South Carolina. And drawing on Calhoun's theory, the state of South Carolina is going to vote to nullify federal tariffs and forbid anyone to collect those taxes within their state borders. Andrew Jackson declares this is treason and moves warships in the area and strengthens army garrisons inside the state. Andrew Jackson also asked Congress for a bill allowing him to use military force to enforce these laws. In other words, Andrew Jackson wants to place the state of South Carolina under military government. Now, no state backs South Carolina in what they're doing. Henry Clay, who is now in the Senate, as is Calhoun, pushes through a compromise where the tariffs will be gradually reduced over 10 years. And that will give South Carolina something so that they can back down, because everyone knows that Andrew Jackson will use military force, and that will cause a whole host of other problems. Now, Calhoun and his supporters of nullification realize that no state can stand alone on this issue, and without that added support, they have to back down, because their choices are really accept something or accept military rule and Andrew Jackson's wrath. So what's the big idea here? Well, first and foremost, there's a question of state versus federal authority. Who is going to decide what's constitutional? These are still questions the United States has not answered yet. Now, at this point, compromise and a threat of military force are going to delay the issue, but these are all things we're going to hear about again later.